We are back with another episode of Dynasty Decisions. Today, we're covering 7 teams, going through everything from rookie draft decisions to trade questions. Am I contending? Am I rebuilding? You guys know what we do around here. If you enjoy at any point, you know what to do. Leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new around here. If you want to be featured on future Dynasty Decisions episodes, we are about 15, 20 teams deep of Flock subscribers who use promo code FSC. So unfortunately, those free submissions will take a while to get to. But of course, you can sign up over on Flock Fantasy. Using the promo code FSC, you will skip the line and you'll get your team covered as soon as possible. We're going to run probably 2-3 episodes of DD this week because we are a little backed up, like I said. So we should get to your team if you did submit as a Flock subscriber and you don't see it in this video. We should get to your team this week before I head off to Europe. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's get things kicked off here with Bryson's team. You guys can see it on the screen there. A 12-team PPR half tight end premium superflex league with Jordan Love, Deshaun Watson, Gardner Minshew as his quarterbacks, James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chase Brown, Zach Charbonnet, and others at running back, Jamar Chase, Tank Dell, not much else at wide receiver, and then tight end Sam Laporta, Isaiah Likely, Luke Musgrave. Doesn't look like he's had his rookie draft yet. Because he's got the 101, 102, 105, 112, 202, and 203 listed there. Also has an extra first in each of the next 2 draft classes, 2025 and 2026. So, I mean, looking at this team, it's a nice shell. It's a good amount of productive, competitive assets with some young guys there. Obviously, the team is very young. The one guy that kind of sticks out to me a little bit is Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of people are having a hard time selling Deshaun Watson right now. So I would say, see what you can get. See if you can get a younger quarterback in a trade package or use one of your firsts or your second or something like that and go up and get a stud quarterback as your second guy. But what are your thoughts on this team? And then we'll get into some of his questions here.
I will say, to be fair, he does have the 101. So we got to be thinking of it in the mindset that Caleb Williams, Jordan Love are his set starters. I don't mind holding Deshaun Watson as my quarterback 3, unless you get good value, which, like Corey was saying, it might be few and far between at this current point, given the market sentiment on Deshaun Watson. If you can get fair value for him, I'm cool with trading him. But if everybody's just trying to offer you piss, it's like, yeah, I'll give you like Geno Smith in a third for Deshaun Watson. At that point, I would just probably hold the value accrual potential that Deshaun Watson could have, where if he stays healthy, if he looks like the guy that he looked like in Spurgeon's last year, we could potentially getting a nice little value bump. So if he was your quarterback 2, I would try to get off of him because he's a risky option. But because knowing you got Caleb coming in, I'm more willing to hold him in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, given the fact, though, that he has a number of other picks that could be quarterback assets. I mean, 101, like you said, 105 might be a quarterback asset if Drake May or Jaden Daniels falls there. 112 and 202 could even be quarterback assets. If they want, he actually mentions too, like, should I go with Bo Nix at 112? Should I wait to see if he falls to me at 202 or something like that? I mean, the way I look at your strategy here is you're going to take Caleb 101. You're going to take Marvin 102. He mentions that the guy who's picking 104 is kind of a casual and he needs a tight end really bad. So he might end up going Bowers over Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, whoever's ending up being there for him on the board at 104. If that happens, I mean, you obviously just take Malik Neighbors 105 and you don't think twice about it. Your goal with this team should be to get your quarterback 2, which is Caleb Williams at 101, and then fill out and load out your wide receiver core because, I mean, you're going to be able to compete next year. Like when we look at this roster, once you add Marvin to this team, who's a top 15 redraft pick, once you add Malik Neighbors to this team or Rome Odunze, worst case scenario, to this team, you're going to be sitting pretty well with your wide receiver core, 112, 202, and 203. You might add an Xavier Worthy, a Ladd McConkey, a Brian Thomas Jr. with one of those picks, maybe multiple of those picks. At 202, 203, I would be very, very happy if you could secure one of the running backs, probably Benson, not Brooks, because Brooks usually goes a little bit sooner. I would be okay taking Brooks at 112 if you wanted to do that as well. I mean, you're in a really good position to just take some high-level rookies, go into the season as like a house money team / probably closer to a contender. And you're going to be well set up in the future because you have 4 extra first rounders in the next 2 draft classes as well. So yeah, this has the makings of being a really strong contender, which is why I proposed that idea right off the jump of, can you take Deshaun Watson in one of your future firsts and go up and get a better quarterback? Because if it's Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, and Anthony Richardson that's on your roster, that would feel a lot better. But at the same time, holding Deshaun Watson, maybe he increases in value if you can't sell him off for at least a first rounder of liquidity, makes some sense as well.
I would probably be more willing to make that move for a wide receiver than another quarterback, because I do feel like Love and Caleb should be your set duo for a while. And to be honest, man, like is the community just a little bit too low on Jordan Love? Like, this guy was a top 5 redraft quarterback last year, is set up in a beautiful situation there with Green Bay, with those weapons, with Matt LaFleur calling the shots. Like, are we sure Jordan Love just won't be like a top 6 overall startup pick next year?
Well, yeah, I proposed the idea in a consult that I had with Jared this morning because he has Jordan Love. He's a Packers fan. I was like, hey, maybe you should go after a better quarterback. And I was like, really, what's the difference between Jordan Love and like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert? There's not a huge difference between those guys. They're all from the same draft class. They're all relatively the same age. Yeah, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert have been better real life quarterbacks for longer, so we trust them a little bit more. But for the most part, I expect Jordan Love probably before the season to get a mega contract extension from the Packers and probably be tied to that offense, that coaching staff, those young weapons that he has for a long time. So yeah, I'm on the same page there. He does have a couple trades listed here. Back early on in the season, he sent away Zay Flowers. He got Isaiah Likely in the 112. Kind of sucks. I mean, I think Zay Flowers is probably worth a little bit more than that at this point in time, but not a terrible trade at the time even. Isaiah Likely, Justin Ross, a third, and Hunter Renfrow got you the 101. What on earth is this trade, dude? What on earth is this trade? Did this guy think he was getting a solidified pass catching PPR guy with Hunter Renfrow? Loves Isaiah Likely.
This is what after the season started.
Like, how the hell did you pull this deal off?
So is this about the time that Andrews got hurt? No, it wasn't even the time Andrews got hurt.
I have no idea. Either way, this guy clearly thought this is a late first rounder that I'm giving away, and it ended up being 101. That is an insane. That might be the biggest robbery I've ever seen on 114 episodes of Dynasty Decisions. This might be the biggest robbery I've ever seen.
Hey, I was going to say, I got one in mind that may be even worse.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Palmer, Zamir White, 309 for 203. I think that was a fine move to make at the time. Zamir White's gained a little bit of value, but you made this trade on May 13th. So, I mean, it's about the time that you were selling.
I still like your side. White. I still like your side because the 203, like, worst case scenario for you, it'd be like Keon Coleman, which I would still rather have Keon Coleman than Zamir White, Trey Palmer in the 309. So I'm still very, very cool with the 203 here.
Yeah, I mean, he also mentions there was other deals. He got 105 for sending Austin Eckler off of his team in October. He got a random 2025 first for Calvin Ridley, a random 2026 first for Najee Harris. So, I mean, you've built up a very, very solid amount of pick liquidity here. I don't even think we really need to spend much more time on this because you're going to spend these picks. You know, you could trade for some veterans if you want to buy low on them. You could spend them on rookies. Like, if you want to send 112 for, Devontae Smith because people are worried about the Eagles offense, you could go ahead and do that. You could, consolidate assets, like I said, at quarterback. You can consolidate assets at running back or at wide receiver. Maybe James Cook plus that 2025 first gets you all the way up to Breece Hall or something like that. There's a number of things that you could do with this team, but I think regardless, you've done a number of sharp moves so far that I think you probably know what you're doing. So we can move on to the next team here, which is from Josh Renfro, 12-team PPR, 6-point per passing touchdown lineup format, super flex league as well. Trevor Lawrence is the only real quarterback to speak of here. Javonte Williams, the only real running back to speak of. Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison are the only wide receivers to speak of. And then you have Kyle Pitts as your main tight end. Does have a number of rookie picks listed here. He has the 102. He has the 107. He has the 108, 211, 302, 402. And then it looks like an additional couple picks next year, including an early projected 2025 first, an additional first, couple early to mid seconds on top of that as well. So struggling roster, right? Only a couple real assets that you have. Lawrence, Wilson, Addison, and Pitts being the main ones. Javonte, maybe if he gets back to full speed. But this is the type of team that once you spend these picks, the roster is going to look a little bit better.
Yeah, 100%. He also says here, I've been trying to trade my 108 for a later first and an earlier second round pick, but haven't had much luck yet. He also says, is Javonte worth holding or should I be looking? Did you already read this part?
No, I didn't. No, yeah. He said, is Javonte worth holding or should I be looking to move off? I mean, it depends what his price tag is in your league. If you can get a first rounder for him or close to it, like an early second rounder in this year's class, I think that would be a fine price to move off of the risk of Javonte Williams. But if all you're getting is like mid to late second offers, I would probably just hold him.
Yeah, for sure. He does list here. Any other suggestions would be appreciated. I am a rebuilder, and he says with a monster in the league. So there is a monster in the league is what he clarifies here.
Yeah, he also mentions he's going to get Caleb at 102, which is great for his team because, I mean, Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams, Marvin would be great for your team also. Like, you really couldn't go wrong with that 102, but he does say that Marvin is going to go 101 in this league. But getting Caleb is actually almost better for your team, to be honest, because you're in need of a stud quarterback, and Caleb is definitely that. I mean, at 107 and 108, you're going to be looking at some good wide receiver potentially options. You have I mean, it sucks that you have Pitts because Bauer's probably not a guy that really interests you. That's probably why he's trying to move off of that 108 and try and trade down. The other thing you could do is if nobody wants to trade down or trade up, I guess, to the 108, you could always trade up from your 108 slightly. Like if 108 plus 211 gets you up to 105 and you can secure Malik Neighbors or maybe even just up to 106 and you get like a future third back or something like that and you can secure Romo Dunze, that would make some sense.
Maybe because 107 and 108, you're set at tight end, and assuming you get Caleb at the 102, you're probably set at quarterback because realistically for me, do I want to use the 107 asset on my quarterback 3? Probably not. So is there a guy that has like a top 5 pick that also has a later first this year that maybe you can swap 107 plus 108 and you maybe get his 104 plus 109 or 110 or something like that? Like, is that possible?
That would be obviously that's really dependent on what picks the guy holds, but I do think that would be a perfect move for you because then it would align better with what you need. Because if you could add Malik Neighbors to this team and then Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, or Brian Thomas Jr. to this team, it would make a little bit more sense with your 107, 108 than as at like where we have the guys ranked there right now. If Odunze is gone, you're looking at JJ McCarthy and Brock Bowers, who like would be fine assets for you to have, but they don't really fit what your team needs at this point in time. So again, definitely work the board, trade down, trade up if you need to. He also has a number of trades listed here where he sold off Brock Purdy and Adam Thielen last year for the 107 and 211.
Good process.
I think that's okay, decent market value. I don't think that's a great trade or a bad trade. He also sold off Jordan Love and Tommy DeVito for the 108 last year. So, I mean, Jordan Love is worth more than the 108 now. So you kind of got fleeced there.
I will say in terms of the Purdy deal, like I view Purdy and JJ McCarthy very, very close from a value perspective. And if you could tell me I can liquidate Adam Thielen into the 211, like I like the move you're able to do there. Not to mention, this was even before, like right as the season started or before the season started, I believe.
No, it was October 5th. Like, I mean, Purdy was kind of on a tear to start the season. To me, I look at this. If you had not traded either of these quarterbacks and you didn't have 107 and 108 as a result, I think you'd be in a slightly better position right now. I'm not going to lie. You'd have Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, and Jordan Love as your quarterbacks. And then you'd be free to basically, say if Caleb is there at 102, trade down from that 102, net a bunch of picks, see if you can get players to fill out your wide receiver core at that point in time. I mean, this is going to be a rebuild that you're probably not going to see the fruits of until 2025 once you spend some picks on some running backs anyway. So for me, it's just take best player available, trade up, trade down when possible. I would definitely prioritize trading up or down from your 107 and 108, just given what prospects are likely going to be there. Of course, if Odunze falls to you at 107, then just take Odunze. But if JJ McCarthy and Brock Bowers is what you're staring at, I would be okay trading up or down.
Yeah, for sure. And I will give context too, like specifically the reason why the 107, 108 Love and Purdy is because like Jordan Love versus the 108 is just night and day. And I understand why you made this at the time. You're not competing. Jordan Love, obviously, I think at this point, November 30th wasn't looking like the Jordan Love that finished the year. Tommy DeVito, this must have been around the time that he was getting a couple starts for the Giants. So you're thinking, well, Jordan Love isn't looking too great. Tommy DeVito, he's going to start a couple of weeks. I may as well just liquidate into a first round pick. It just obviously doesn't work out because after I believe like the Raiders game or after the bye week, like Jordan Love went on a tear. So I'm assuming this probably happened right before his tear.
Not to mention the playoff game against you guys that really skyrocketed his value. Like I wouldn't be shocked if we look back at that playoff game and we're like, man, Jordan Love got a little overvalued as a result of that game. But I also wouldn't be shocked if that was just a sign of things to come, right? Like that also happened to Trevor Lawrence, right? Like we saw the Chargers get up big on the Jags and they came back and won that game. And that's basically what happened to Trevor Lawrence last offseason where he started to rise in value as a result of that. So again, this team going to need some work for sure. There's a lot of work to be done here. But trading up and trading down with these first round picks this year is probably something I would entertain. 102 Caleb Williams, don't trade down from that. You definitely need Caleb Williams. Definitely pick him there. But 107, 108, even 211, 302 as well. Like if people want to trade up in those areas and give you future second round picks or future third round picks in 2025, just pocket as much pick liquidity as you can because you're going to need a good volume of assets. The nice thing is if you hit on your picks this year, you're going to have a couple staple assets going forward. And then in 2025, you can have the fun and fill out your running back core and maybe add another receiver or two there at that point. So let's move on to the next team here, which is from J.H. Davis here, 12-team PPR, 6-point per passing touchdown. Lamar Jackson, Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy, and Will Levis at quarterback. Bijan Robinson, Tajay Spears, Javonte Williams, Ty Chandler, Isaac Garendo, guys like that at running back. Marvin Harrison Jr., Zay Flowers, Debo Samuel, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Romeo Doubs, and others at wide receiver. Doesn't have a real tight end to speak of at this point in time, but the rest of the roster is in pretty good shape. Obviously, he lists what picks he had, where he spent those picks on the side there. And then he also has 3 additional 2025 firsts, and then all of his future picks in general. So, I mean, this has the makings of maybe this was a house money team going into the draft, but man, if you hit on some of these rookie picks this year, and I love the players that you ended up getting, this could be a contender year one for sure. With minus a tight end, really, you're in a pretty good spot all around.
I have one singular gripe. Okay. I am the biggest Michigan fan you will find. But in this situation at the 107, taking McCarthy as your quarterback 4 when you're basically at 107 locked into a Dunze, or in your situation specifically,
Bowers would have been perfect.
That's what I'm referring to. In most situations, especially a startup perspective, yes, I would take JJ McCarthy over Brock Bowers. But given the context of your team, that it's already loaded as it is, that you already have those picks banked, and that realistically, if you hit on some things, you can legit compete this year. I just don't understand taking JJ over Brock unless you think the Brock owner will panic at quarterback and give you Brock plus a little biscuit for JJ at a later point. That's the only way I can see you making this.
Yeah, the only way you do this trade is if it was clearly a sign of best player available, or maybe even Bowers went 106. But if that had happened, that means either Drake May or Romo Dunze had fallen to you. So yeah. I think you probably should have just gone with Bowers there. But again, tight ends are relatively acquirable in trades. Like, it's not a big deal to have to go out and buy a tight end.
Look at Jake Ferguson.
I mean, I talked about Jake Ferguson yesterday. Yeah. I've talked about David Njoku as a cheap option. George Kittle is a cheap option that you could go after. Even Travis Kelce, if you wanted to go really all in. I would say those guys don't really quite fit as much. I would go for a younger guy like a Jake Ferguson, or potentially even like a Dalton Kincaid or a TJ Hawkinson or somebody like that would make some sense. So for me, you have some work to do at tight end, but I look at this team and I'm like, yeah, man, like you could probably compete this year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you're in a great spot. Obviously, once you figure out the tight end position, like Corey said, like you get Jake Ferguson's a guy that you could probably realistically get for that 2025 second round pick, give or take. Maybe you have to add like a Wan'Dale Robinson because
I think you should be able to get him for a 2, especially like go to a team that has a lot of tight ends. Like there's got to be a team in your league that has Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, and Jake Ferguson on the roster.
You just explained AJ.
Yeah, I did just explain AJ, but given the nature of the tight end position in Dynasty, there's going to be a couple teams in your league that have Dallas Goedert, David Njoku, or Kyle Pitts and Trey McBride. Like there's a couple teams in most leagues where everybody's got a tight end that they would be okay or motivated to sell. And I think that there should be a team like that in your league. So definitely go and inquire with them, see what they could get. Even if you wanted to go really cheap and go after a Dallas Goedert or even like a Cade Otton or something, like just for dirt cheap, like 3rd round pick kind of capital to send their way, you're really like a tight end away from having like a house money top 3 to 4 team in terms of overall contender. And obviously your team's very young. You have 3 firsts banked up. You also have the luxury too, is you could go after a stud tight end if you wanted to. I mean, you have the 1st round pick liquidity to be able to do it. You could sell off whatever your latest projected first is and go after a Trey McBride, or maybe package something together to go after a Sam Laporta, maybe a Mark Andrews, somebody like that.
I mean, I know you just selected him in the draft, but like JJ McCarthy just doesn't fit your team. You have Lamar, you have Caleb, you have Levis as your quarterback 3. Like you're going to have to move the quarterback liquidity at some point. So if you can use that for your tight end move, again, maybe Bowers went 106 so Bowers wasn't available. And then you just said, you know what? Like the quarterback equity in my league is so massive. I have to take JJ over Roma Dunze. I could see that being the case, but yeah, like
not when you have Caleb, I wouldn't have done that, but yeah,
you know what I mean though? Like I'm trying to rationalize it realistically in your spot. I just wouldn't have taken JJ. I'm not going to keep harping on it because you guys know how much I love JJ, but yeah, I just didn't think it fit your build.
Yeah, absolutely. So whether you use future first capital or whether you use JJ McCarthy or whatever the case is, you have the ability to consolidate some assets here. You also could do the same thing at running back too. Like if you wanted to take Javonte Williams or Tajay Spears, a guy that's a little bit more risky, and add in some pick capital or whatever in the future and go after another hammer at running back to go along with Bijan Robinson, a young hammer specifically would be ideal. That would also make some sense, I think, for your team as well. But this is also kind of like a wait and see approach type of team because it's young enough that if you don't compete this year, like let's say you barely sneak into the playoffs because you have some injuries and your young players take a while to get their legs under them and you get bounced round 2 of the playoffs or whatever, you're going to be very well set up next year because you have those 3 ones banked up.
Also, I just noticed you got Xavier Worthy at the 202.
That's crazy, man. That is a crazy good value. That's wild to me that you got him that early or that late, because
Yeah.
I mean, I got him at 111 in a league the other day, and I thought it was a steal. Like I'd never seen him fall past like the 109 to 110 range. He's usually the first of that second tier that's off the board because of the Kansas City landing spot. So yeah, I mean, JH Davis, he also has what he ended up paying for Caleb Williams here. He ended up trading up for the 101, giving up the 103, 109, 208, and 103, 109, 208, and Deontay Johnson for Caleb Williams in the 101. I'm fine with that move, honestly. Like, yeah, hypothetically, 103, you could have gotten Drake May there. Is there that big of a difference between Drake May and Caleb Williams? Or maybe you could have gotten Malik Neighbors there if you want to just hold and take a wide receiver. 109 could have been, I mean, you have BTJ and Xavier Worthy on your team. That could have been Bowers. That could have been your Bowers pick, which maybe would have sucked a little bit to give that up. But I'm cool doing this for Caleb Williams. And we're talking about a guy who's top 6 in my startup rankings. You gave up essentially a mid to late second round startup pick in Drake May or Malik Neighbors. 109 is probably like a 4th round startup pick or a late 3rd round startup pick. And then 208 is like a mid round pick. Deontay Johnson, a late, back end 8th, 9th, 10th rounder. Like, I think I'm fine making this move.
Especially knowing the context that you're so backloaded with picks next year. Like, go buy Caleb Williams. Like, you have the ability to do that with this team.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can move on to the next team here, which is from JGav. Here, let me pull this up. I got it right here. Okay. We got 12 team PPR, 6 point per passing touchdown, full tight end premium. So tight end's going to have a lot of value. Obviously, having McBride and Pitts definitely helps you. Super flex league as well. Anthony Richardson, JJ McCarthy, Will Levis as the main quarterbacks. A little light at running back, Jalen Wright, Chase Brown, Ray Davis, Tyrone Tracy, Zach Charbonnet, little 0 RB type of build. Loaded at wide receiver, Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake London, JSN, Lad McConkey, Keon Coleman. You go 6 deep of guys that I feel really comfortable as top 35 guys with a couple top 10 dynasty receivers to cap that off. And like I said, full tight end premium, Trey McBride, Kyle Pitts, Tucker Kraft, Noah Fant is a pretty good core. Obviously, it looks like he spent all of his rookie picks already. At 102, he probably took Marvin Harrison. At 201, he probably took Lad McConkey. At 202, he probably took Keon Coleman, so on and so forth. Looks like he got Jalen Wright and Ray Davis and those guys in the later rounds. And then it looks like he has an extra 2 and an extra 3 in 2025 as well. He said he feels like he's probably at least one more year away from being competitive. And he said he doesn't want to push his chips in too early. Now, this is an interesting topic because I think a lot of newer dynasty players get themselves into this trap where they see the fruits of their labor. They want to push their chips in. Yeah. But I actually think you're misevaluating your team here. I think that your team is absolutely ready to compete right now.
I understand why you might be a little bit hesitant because you do have some volatility at quarterback, specifically from a production standpoint. Because I would say Anthony Richardson, redraft, he's going quarterback 6 or 7. Like, he's going to be a solid redraft quarterback for you. But as much as I love JJ and as much as I love Will Levis in terms of dynasty value, young, appreciating assets, are they going to give you those, 18 plus, 19 plus points per game? I think that's a little optimistic. More so for JJ, I would say, as a rookie coming in. Maybe Darnold starts early on in the season. Will Levis, I mean, we're very optimistic, but if he takes like a Jordan Love leap, that would be your path to paying off pretty much. If Will Levis can end up being Jordan Love this year, then you have a chance to be a top 3 overall team in your league. You do have a trade on the table here with Kyle Pitts. I love Kyle Pitts, but given the context of your team that you have McBride, that you can bank an extra pick to be able to use in season for buying power, and the fact that you need a running back, which Trey Benson would help with, I'm taking that deal.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I think Trey Benson and a first for Pitts, like, this might, in a full tight end premium, like, Pitts is going to have value for sure. If people aren't going to value Pitts, then definitely don't sell him and wait till the season starts and the points are being put up and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think I would absolutely take Trey Benson and a late first for Kyle Pitts in this league format. He also has a number of other trades listed. I mean, looking at this team, it's all going to come down to, like, how do you start off the season? If Richardson's cooking, if JJ or Darnold, because you have both guys, like, are serviceable as a QB2, or Will Levis takes a step forward, you're going to have the ability, like you said, if you make this Benson trade, to use that 2025 first for buying power. You also have an additional second. You also have an additional third. Like, you could go after, hypothetically, a Josh Jacobs or a Jonathan Taylor or something like that. Like, come beginning of the season, if Benson takes Benson, Charbonnet, Chase Brown, Jalen Wright, somebody's giving you like RB2 production and you want to go buy a bona fide RB1, you can bank that 2025 first that you got, get a second rounder on top of it and go after Jonathan Taylor, that makes a lot of sense given the context of your team, because your receiver core is absolutely ready to compete right now. Your tight end core, absolutely ready to compete right now. It's really all going to come down to how do your quarterbacks perform early on, because if your quarterbacks perform and your running backs, maybe one or two of them are giving you decent usable production, maybe Chase Brown won out the Bengals job, or Jalen Wright's a good, flex play, or Zach Charbonnet has, a standalone role plus some handcuff upside. You have the ability with one more running back added to this team and some quarterback production to be able to compete with this one. And then he also has a number of trades listed here. He sent away Nico Collins and received JJ McCarthy. So, 107 for Nico Collins seems to be exactly about the value I would put on Nico, especially given your receiver core. I think that made a lot of sense. The one thing I would have said, though, I guess Brooks probably would have went before the 201, 202, where you were picking in your rookie draft. If you could have gotten Brooks at 201, 202, I might have just held Nico Collins and then taken Brooks at 201, 202 instead of going to acquire JJ McCarthy personally.
You mean Bo Nix?
Sorry. Yeah. Bo Nix is what I meant to say. Sorry, not Brooks. I think that might have made a little bit more sense because Nico is a great, I slightly prefer him to JJ McCarthy. I
prefer JJ. I prefer JJ. I have him as a top 36 overall player for me. The reason being that I would disagree a little bit is that as much as I love Will Levis, like him being a quarterback 2, Nix being a quarterback 3. I mean, to be fair, you did have Nix higher than me or higher than JJ pre-draft. So it makes sense why you would prefer that value bundle. But for me, I do feel like JJ McCarthy, given that landing spot, given the draft capital, given what I thought about JJ as an upside type of prospect out of structure with the arm talent, the ability to work on the move, on top of being just a young asset. And I think that's the number one thing too, from a value accrual perspective. Like JJ McCarthy, if he has a solid rookie season at 22 years old, he's going to be a top 15 overall startup pick.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that's pretty much a wash, that trade, regardless of what you think of it. The next trade here, he ends up sending away the 302 and 402. Trades down to the 309, 409, and banks a 2025 third. I mean, this is the type of shit me and you do all the time. Yeah. So definitely a solid move there. He sells off 2 busts, essentially, Jamison Williams and Treylon Burks for a 2025 second and Rashid Shaheed. Again, there's some buzz on both of these guys. Jamison Williams getting some steam in best ball. Treylon Burks, maybe he works into the slot a little bit more, but generally speaking, I think this is a pretty decent process move. Just bank the second. You can use that as buying power at the running back position. Maybe Joe Mixon's out to a pretty hot start and the guy that has Joe Mixon midseason is not competing. You could probably use that 25 second that you banked in this trade to go buy a guy like that, or to go buy a James Conner or an Alvin Kamara or an Aaron Jones or somebody that can help your team if it breaks the right way. So bottom line is, this is a house money roster, but it's closer to a contender than it is to a house money team. And if you can make a move here or there to acquire a stud running back or a young running back that fits this build, I think you could definitely compete with this team if things break right for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you assisted very well. And you're in a good spot.
Yep. So let's move on to YVLabrum's team here. 12-team, half PPR, half tight end premium as well, super flex format. Kyler Murray, Will Levis. I feel like Will Levis has been on every single team that we've broken down so far, but Kyler Murray and Will Levis are the main quarterbacks. Rashad White, Devon Achane, J.K. Dobbins, Kareem Hunt, Roshan Johnson, a couple other guys there. Keaton Mitchell buried down at the bottom. Then you also have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tank Dell, Christian Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, Rashad Bateman with a sad face at wide receiver, and then Chig Okonkwo, Luke Musgrave, Brenton Strange. So a little weak at tight end at this current point. It doesn't look like he's at his rookie draft yet, though. 107 and 110. And 207 and 309 are the picks that he holds. An additional first in 2025 banked up. And then it looks like all of his other future picks there. So, I mean, I look at this team and I think you got a really nice shell. Once you add the 107 and 110, I mean, you're premier Brock Bowers contender with 107. I think given your tight end core, he would make a lot of sense. But also, I mean, JJ McCarthy makes a lot of sense at 107 as well. 110, I mean, I'd probably just take best available receiver, Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, all make sense at that point in time. 207, you should be able to get another receiver there, like a Jalen Polk or an Adonai Mitchell or a Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Legette or whoever you like at that point in time would make some sense. I don't know. To me, I just think fill out the wide receiver core with some of these picks, add a tight end and or a quarterback. If you walked out of this rookie draft with JJ McCarthy and then Xavier Worthy and Jalen Polk, I would feel pretty comfortable with the way you've built this thing out.
I would say it is a very optimistic frame of mind to think you're going to compete this year. The reason being is that at this current point, you're weak at wide receiver. You don't have a set tight end. You do have some risk at quarterback. And I would argue that from a redraft projection standpoint, like, yeah, you got Amon St. Brown and Tank Dell. That's about even with the top of your running back position. I just feel like you have to keep adding numbers again. Start 10 leagues. So these top end assets are going to matter. So having Amon or having HN, having Kyler at their respective positions are going to matter. But I feel like Corey said, you got to keep filling out this team. I would say your window is probably 2025 once you're able to use those picks either to add to this team or potentially trade into vets.
Yeah, he also mentions too, he's kind of like tentative on JJ McCarthy. He's not a huge JJ guy, and he would like to explore the possibility of trading up for Drake May, which makes sense to me. I think if he says if Drake May falls to 105, which he thinks he's probably going to me, I would go up and get Drake May for sure, especially knowing that at 207, you could maybe pair him with his receiver in Jalen Polk. He also said he's fine waiting on like Penix if he falls to 207. I mean, if Penix falls to 207, then yeah, I would 100% take him at that point in time.
Yeah.
He said just the team just feels very average and he's not sure which direction to go. And I think that's a pretty decent assessment of the team. So if you can, again, add some good players, maybe trade down if you need to, if you want to collect more future capital. Like Danny said, your window is probably once you spend your 2025 picks is when things are going to start to open up for you, because at that point in time, you can probably add some more running backs, add some more wide receiver talent. Maybe your young guys get better. And if that's the case, I'm not married to Rachaad White on my roster. I'm not married to DeAndre Hopkins, especially on my roster. You could sell off those guys for future capital if that's the position your team is in, which I believe you've kind of made the correct assessment in saying that. He also has some trades listed here. He said he had a bad stretch in 2023 with like 2 wins and 12 losses versus the league median. After getting rid of Kupp, Wilson, and Kelsey, he ended the league in 6th. He started 2023. The startup draft was normal, and then the rookie auction was, Mingo, Levis, Tank Dell, Devon Achane, and Vaughn. He said, I don't believe May will make it to 107, but like he said, he is okay trading up for him. So it sounds like he had an epiphany last season and was like, I don't think I can compete with this team. And that's why he sold off Cooper Kupp. Getting the 111, Roschon Johnson, Rashad Bateman's pretty solid return, I think, for Cooper Kupp. Yeah. Getting Luke Musgrave, DTR 107 and 307 for Kelsey, Russell Wilson, Gus Edwards in the 507, I think was a decent return as well. And then he sent away just a couple weeks ago, Derek Carr, Jamal Williams, and then the 109 this year for Sam Howell and a mid-projected first in 2025.
I probably hold that.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr is worth more than Sam Howell. As much as I like Sam Howell and he fits your team better, Derek Carr is worth more than Sam Howell because he's a starting quarterback under contract. The 109 would have been a nice, helpful asset for you because that might have been your Brock Bowers pick right there. And you could have added both JJ and Brock Bowers, 107 and 109 potentially, if they're both there, or you just grab wide receiver 4 in this class. Yeah, I'm indifferent on that trade. I like getting the mid-projected first next year, but I think I may have wanted like a 2 on top of your side here.
And that's kind of where I'm at, is thinking about it. 109 right now, whether that's Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, Lab McConkey, whoever would have went to that spot for you. I feel like there's a good chance they can get you a mid-projected 2025 1 and 2 at some point in this upcoming season, knowing the situations they're in, knowing the talent of all those players, and knowing the sentiment right now on the 2025 class being weaker than 2024. I definitely feel like a 2025 1 and 2 you could have gotten if you waited.
Yeah, in normal years, sometimes we're like, hey, if you've got a projected mid first on the table for your 109, 110, 111, 112, it's always a good trade. But this year's a little bit different in that guys like Xavier Worthy, and especially if a Brock Bowers had fallen to you at 109, they're not mid to late projected guys next year. Like they're potentially guys that would have been early or mid projected prospects in next year's class, just given what we know about the class so far and given what we know about the 2024 class and the landing spots that those guys got. So for me, I think this deal is about a second too short. I would have wanted a 2 on top of Sam Howell in the mid projected first, but overall it's a pretty decent move. Like I said, you're going to be in a position where I'd be okay expending anybody who's expendable and punting this thing into more 2025 capital so that once you spend your 2025 picks, you're actually in like a house money window in 2025. And hopefully, I mean, you got some risky guys on your roster. Hopefully a Will Levis pays off for you. Hopefully a Devon Achane pays off for you. Hopefully a Tank Dell pays off for you, guys like that who are a little bit more volatile in terms of their value. So let's look at AJ's team here, which is the next one when we got on the table here. We got a 12-team PPR 6 point per passing touchdown, half tight end premium super flex league. Looks like the top 2 quarterbacks are 2 from this year's class: Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Trey Benson, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, Chase Brown, Roschon Johnson, Kendre Miller, Isaac Guerrero. A lot of 0 RB FSE staples right there.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, Drake London, Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey, Jerry Jeudy, Roman Wilson, Jermaine Burton, Johnny Wilson, Rashad Bateman, again, very loaded at wide receiver core. And then Sam Laporta as your main tight end. Does look like he's had his rookie draft already. He kind of lists all the picks that he held. It looks like he maybe traded back from the 103 to the 104 to get Malik Neighbors there. The 108 he maybe traded back from to net that like 111 or that 110 that he got for Bo Nix there. So it looks like he was active in the rookie draft, which you love to see, especially when your team is not ready to compete right now. Move down the board, move up the board, get the value pockets that you want to get. And then he has a number of picks banked up with an extra first next year, an extra second next year. So, I mean, I look at this team. The quarterback core is the main concern because the two guys that you have, I would rather have as quarterback threes probably. But if one of them hits, like they could be a QB2, a guy that you rely on, you're missing a quarterback one. That's essentially what you're missing with this team because the running back core, I actually really like how you've structured it. I think there's a lot of upside there. The wide receiver core is pretty loaded. And then you have the best tight end in Dynasty right now. So other than the fact that like if you had Kyler Murray on top of the rest of this team, I'd feel pretty good about this.
Yeah, I would agree. You feel like a quarterback short right now. I like Corey said, how you structured the rest of the team, but that's definitely going to be high priority for you moving forward. Again, who knows? Maybe Bo Nix goes out there, looks great in year one. He sees a massive value jump. Even if he gets, a value jump, I kind of feel like he's going to be valued as a quarterback too, no matter what he does. Because, I mean, look at Brock Purdy. He's in a great situation. He produced last year, and he's kind of viewed as in that quarterback 15 to 18 range. That's about where I see Bo Nix climbing to. Now, can he eventually end up being a top 12 guy? I'm not quite sure. I think he's capable of it from a talent perspective, but will the market ever really jump him up that high? That's the question I have.
Yeah, I think this is the type of team I would 100% explore the veteran quarterback market with, just because you have the pick liquidity to be able to make a move. And you also have some stacking potential too. Like, I mean, Justin Herbert's a little on the downslope right now in a lot of people's minds, and you have Lad McConkey to go along with him. So that would make some sense if you could send especially because you have an early first listed there. I don't know if it's yours that you're projecting to be early, but if it is yours, you could probably convince somebody that it's going to be early because you have a very young team, and you could send off an early first and a second, maybe your 2026 second or both of the seconds you have in 2025. And that might get you close to Justin Herbert. You might not only have to add in a couple, other veterans that you have on your roster. Like, there's people that are lower on some of these high-end quarterbacks right now. Like, I know you're making a face like you would never sell
one
Justin
and two for Herbert. I would be shocked if anybody gave.
Maybe it costs you both ones too. Like maybe it just costs you both ones plus a veteran or something like that, or one of your twos. Like I'd be okay doing that, but again, being patient is something that I would do. Like I would look only for a veteran quarterback that I can get at a discount. Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence also makes a lot of sense. Like guys that are on the low on the market right now. If you can send that early projected 2025 first, that early projected 2025 second, maybe that gets you close to Lawrence, that you only have to add like one veteran in there to get it done. Those are the types of things that I would do, because if you can take a risk on Trevor Lawrence and he pays off and he becomes an elite quarterback, then suddenly this team is going to be in a really good spot.
Yeah, I think Lawrence is probably your ideal target. Again, like if somebody's completely anti Justin Herbert, like throw an offer, see what they're
maybe that's a
like
dumb take that I made. Maybe nobody's selling Justin Herbert for that. I'm just kind of spitballing here with the type of veteran quarterback I'd be going after.
Like even, and to be fair, I actually like the Justin Herbert call. Like even if it costs you like both those ones and the two, like maybe somebody like, oh, it's going to be Jerry Jeudy's season on the Browns. Like you can add him in and they value him as a 2 or something like that. Just workshop with it. Like Corey said, that's basically the message here. Try to workshop some quarterback deals. We're going to spitball some offers, but at the end of the day, you're going to know your league market. You're going to know what these guys would let go of these guys for.
And of course, AJ has access to the Flock trade calculator, which is adjusted to his league settings and all that kind of stuff. So he'll be able to workshop those trades there. He also says too, like, I'm assuming this is a house money team. I would say, yeah, for sure. Especially knowing that you have 2 rookie quarterbacks. One of them is probably not even going to start. Like, 2025 is the first time that you're probably going to be even thinking about competing. And that's all also dependent on what happens with Kirk Cousins, what happens with Michael Penix, what happens with some of your running backs. Like if you hit big on a Trey Benson, you hit big on a Jalen Wright, for example, or Chase Brown, or somebody like Kendre Miller becomes a starter in 2025. I think you should be ready to compete by then. This year, it's probably more of a wait and see approach. Probably not quite ready to compete unless you got really lucky here and Bo Nix is just like a star. Michael Penix takes over for like an injured Kirk Cousins and he becomes like a star also. You're probably not ready to compete at this point in time, but you do have some upside that if you made maybe a veteran quarterback move, you could potentially compete if things broke right. But yeah, house money is exactly how I would describe this team. He does have a couple trades listed here. Like we said, during the rookie draft, he traded down from 108, which became Brock Bowers. Makes sense. Didn't need Brock Bowers, had Sam Laporta. 310, he also gave up in that deal. Got 110, 212. 301 and Jerry Jeudy. So you move down 2 spots, you get Bo Nix instead of Brock Bowers, you pocket Blake Corum and Roman Wilson. I'm not super big on Roman Wilson, but I think that's a fine move. And then Jerry Jeudy, I know, I think AJ's kind of high on him. And then the other deal that he made, he moved down from 103, Jaden Daniels, pocketed a second round pick and got Malik Neighbors, who you probably were comfortable taking over Jaden Daniels to begin with. So I like that move as well.
Yeah, no, I think you did a good job. But like Corey said, if a quarterback becomes available, you should be open ears, because I do feel like the rest of your roster you structured well.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully things break right for you this season. We'll move on to the last league, last team that we're talking about here. This is a league I'm actually in. So he says, roster, get faded league. I'm in this league. I'm a contender in this league. Bailey was a recent addition to this league. He took over an orphan that was in horrid shape, absolutely horrible shape. So if you're wondering how the fuck did this roster get this bad, there is one absolute monster in this league. Scott's team is unbelievable. He has Lamb, Jefferson, and Chase. So we're talking about a team that is an absolute haymaker monster. Somehow has never won the championship, by the way, with a team like that.
It sounds like my listener league team where I have a monster and haven't won.
He had McCaffrey, Saquon, Gibbs at running back. He had his team is mental. I don't know how the hell he hasn't won a championship yet. I was in the championship last year.
Didn't you say he has Allen and Mahomes too? Or is that
I think he has Mahomes and Hurts.
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. Yeah.
It's ridiculous how good this guy's team is. And yet I made the championship last year with Bryce Young and Joe Flacco as my quarterbacks because Justin Herbert and Kirk Cousins were injured. So it's crazy to me that his team is not winning championships, but rest assured, Bailey's team will be a long-term rebuild for sure. 12 team, tight end premium. It's a half PPR, super flex league. He has nothing to speak of at quarterback, nothing to speak of at running back outside of James Conner. I believe he actually just traded James Conner for like the 310 in the rookie class. He's like, just get him off my team. I just want a rookie pick. And then Treylon Burks, Noah Brown. Like, again, Dalton Kincaid is really his only asset. I will pull up the rookie draft board because he doesn't list what he did in the rookie draft, but I actually have the ability to check what he did because it did actually just finish the other day. So I'll pull up the rookie draft board in a second here. But for now, I mean, general advice is pretty obvious here. So at 102, he selected Marvin Harrison Jr. At 112, he selected Ladd McConkey. At 202, he selected Keon Coleman. At 207, he selected Adonai Mitchell. At 302, he took Spencer Rattler. At 310, he took Audric Estime. At 311, he took Bucky Irving. At 404, he took Kamani Vidal. At 408, he took Devontae Walker. So he made it a priority to fill out his wide receiver core essentially this year. And it's tough because he didn't really have the pick that lined up to be a quarterback. It would have been nice to add a quarterback, but Bo Nix
not the worst, by the way.
So Bo Nix wasn't there for him at 112.
Real quick, not even the worst. So you didn't add a quarterback because this team is so far out to the point where taking a 0 at that position may actually be more beneficial for the tank.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing he could have maybe done differently was Michael Penix went 204 and he had the 207. He also had the 202, which I'm fine taking Coleman with that pick, but I might have considered trying to slide up from the 207 to get Michael Penix because he actually fits this build quite well.
Can you really afford to with this roster though?
Not really, but if all it costed him was like 207 and 310, and the guy that actually selected Penix is kind of a bit of a casual, so it wouldn't have shocked me if he took something like that. That wouldn't have been a terrible idea, but like rest assured, this team is in like horrid shape. So you need as much volume as possible, as many picks as you.
How did this guy do that? How did the previous owner do that to this team?
I don't know. I believe this is the guy that traded a couple really, really good. I think this is the guy that maybe traded me Bijan for the 110 and Jamison Williams or whatever. Like, I think this guy is the guy who orphaned this team was an utter casual and I had no idea what he was doing.
I have to ask you what the username was off this video because I really need to know who.
Yeah, I'll take a look at who it ended up being, but it was bad. This guy decimated this team, and I think he also just like didn't respond when people were like, "Are you playing? Like, are you going to pay in?" I'm pretty sure we just booted this guy and brought Bailey in, and he was like, "I'll fall on the sword. I'll take this project." But this is a rough rebuild. So again. I think Bailey knows the answer here. This league, I will say, of all my dynasty leagues, is the easiest one to acquire draft picks in. Like the dynasty leagues you and I are in, the listener leagues, they're like pulling teeth trying to get draft picks from people. Like this league is a little bit more slightly more focused to a redraft market where you can actually get some things done.
Dude, it's crazy. In our leagues, like somebody could be offering like 115% of the market value for draft picks and people would still say no. Like it's actually crazy.
Yeah, like I said, there's a couple monsters in this league. Scott's team is absolutely unbelievable. My team's gotten pretty good. Cali God's team is pretty good too. So, I mean, you're probably going to have to just like get volume and hope you hit on some picks here at this point in time. So you added a lot of players. Marvin's going to obviously make a nice difference to your team. McConkey, Coleman, Mitchell, those guys fill out your wide receiver core a little bit. Got some zero upside. Audric Estime, Bucky Irving, Kamani Vidal guys. I would probably sell them if they do anything in their rookie years. I wouldn't even hold those guys. Sell them for seconds in 26. Sell them for seconds in 25. Like your goal at this point is to collect 2025 and 2026 pick capital because you're not competing until at least 2026, I would say.
Like I would say outside of maybe like Marv, like would you just sell everything else off? Like
I mean, even Marvin, man, like if somebody's willing to give me a bunch of picks in 25 and 26 for it, like my team is ready.
Can you get 3 first?
Like, I still have my 2025 first. If he wanted to sell Marvin, I could offer him like my 25 first, my 26 first, and like a young player, and then like like a second or something like that. Maybe he's willing to do that because it just gets the production off of his team. It punts his window even into the future. But I mean, Marvin's young. You can obviously just hold him.
Yeah, play with the calculator. But what I will say, well, you have to make sure when you're selling those assets, because it's clear as day, like you're gonna have to sell your assets. Like we all know watching this video right now that this team is probably a 2027 plus type of rebuild. Like that's what we're looking at. We're looking at rolling up the sleeves. You're heading to the mines. You're working all fucking day to try to get this thing fucking going.
Yeah, like this league has been around since 2019 too. So this is not a new dynasty league. This league has been around for like this is his 5th season, I believe. I joined it in 2020 after the 2020 season, going into the 2020 season. So I've been in this league for 4 years. It's my longest standing dynasty league right now. So I would say you got a lot of work to do. Probably sell off Dalton Kincaid as well. I mean, you're not going to get anything really for anybody else on your roster. Like I said, I think he sold James Conner for that Audric Estime pick, that 310. So punting into a young running back makes some sense. He could have some upside. You could flip him for a second if he hits, that kind of thing. That's your goal at this point in time. Your goal is to collect as many 2025 and 2026 picks as you possibly can. I think the challenging thing with this league is I'm not sure we're allowed to trade 2026 picks at this point in time unless you pay in for that. And I don't even think the league safe is set up for that at this point in time. So 2025, I guess, is your best window to just be collecting draft picks in.
For sure.
Yeah. So again, long-term rebuild, of course, you never want to be in a situation like this. I want to point out for the record that this was not Bailey's doing. This was somebody else's doing as well. But you have a long, tedious rebuild ahead of you. And he basically said, can't believe you guys made me pay $50 for this team, LOL. And he just said thoughts on the trades too. So let's break down the trades that he ended up making as well. He said he probably could have gotten more, but nobody seemed to want him. I knew he would get extended, but I didn't feel like waiting. So he's talking about Jared Goff here. So he ended up, when he took over the team, he sold Derrick Henry and Zamir White. He got a 2025 first in the 404. I think that was a great move. You got 2 aging guys off of your roster. He sold Evan Ingram for the 207. Again, would you want more for Evan Ingram? Probably, but you don't really have the option to do that right now. Like you need him off your team. You need picks. That's all you need. What I would have said maybe differently, what I would have done, maybe differently is instead of getting the 207, just shoot for a 2025 second and third, just so you get an extra pick out of it and you're, punting it to the next year.
I will say with the context, I mean, yeah, maybe you prefer Evan Ingram to AD Mitchell straight up, but knowing the upside there, I don't mind making that move. You're basically betting on AD Mitchell potentially having a value accrual like a George Pickens archetype, whereas Evan Ingram, like he's a very productive tight end piece, but what is his peak market value? Like maybe he climbs round 7, round 8.
You're never getting a 1 for Evan Ingram. Let's just put it that way. You're never getting a 1 for Evan Ingram. He's too old. He's too, got a little bit of stink on him from his Giants days. It's like really hard to just, unless he was like the tight end 1 in fantasy this year, it's just really hard to imagine.
He's coming off a tight end 2 year now.
He was great this year, and people are still like not that excited about him. He's part of the reason why I just don't like drafting tight ends early is because you can get a guy like Evan Ingram later. So Jared Goff and DeAndre Hopkins, this is a trade that he was talking about. He ended up getting 112, a 2025 second in the 408. Again, this was pre-Goff extension. Maybe you could get a little bit more than this at this point in time. But yeah, I mean, you didn't really have a choice. You had to sell Jared Goff and DeAndre Hopkins. You had to get them off your roster.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you know what you're going to have to do with this team. We know what we have to do with this team. Like, you have to just keep fucking grinding away. Like, that's really the best advice I can give here. Like, we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to act like this thing isn't the ugliest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is there's a number of bad teams in this league. A lot, actually. Like when you go to our Flock Fantasy site and you can see the My Teams page, it's like Scott's team is double the value of anybody else's. My team and Cali God's team are like over 24,000 in value, which is usually a really good team in most other leagues. And then everybody else is at the bottom. It's like a 3-man race for the championship next year. And then nobody else has a chance, pretty much.
So Cali God won last year then?
He won. Yeah, he beat me in the finals last year.
Fair enough. Did he beat Scott in the semi?
No, he won. He won back to back. He won 2 years ago as well.
No. I mean, like in the semifinal.
Yeah, he knocked Scott out. I didn't knock Scott out. He knocked Scott out last year too. So it's crazy how good these teams have gotten in this league, and like how bad everybody else's team is. It's mainly because there's a couple guys in this league that don't really know what they're doing, and they traded away picks, and some of them have like there's teams in this league where you'll look at the roster and they have like Tyreek Hill, Drake May, like there's no direction. Hey. Like there's young guys with old guys and no picks with a lot of picks. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Scott is the apex predator too. He's going to slide in with the nice DMs. He's going to be getting on their good side, and then he's going to rip the fleece of a century.
He's a silent assassin in this league, bro. Like he stole CeeDee Lamb and for what it's worth, he drafted CeeDee Lamb and Jefferson too. Like that's how long this league has been around, is that he's literally drafted those players.
Yeah, I remember like when I first got into Dynasty too, like Scott was like I would always talk with Scott, and that was right about the 2020 class. And I remember he said like, yeah, I load up with like 5+ firsts in every single one of my leagues because I love this class. And yeah, I guess he just like hit on every one of his firsts.
Team
in every
is mental
league.
From that 2020 class. Yeah, like he also had a lot of 2023 firsts because that was the cool thing to do back in the day, right? And that's how he got Gibbs, and that's how he got some of the other guys that he has. So yeah, his team is mental. Like I said, he got Jalen Hurts in the second round, obviously too in that 2020 class. He basically hit on every single pick. Is essentially what happened. So again, this league is interesting because there's actually some history behind it. That's the cool thing about being in a dynasty league for a number of years, is you can be like, yeah, I drafted like Jalen Hurts like 4 years ago with a 205, and now he's like an elite dynasty quarterback. So that feels pretty good. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you got some value from it, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'll actually be breaking down that league a little bit more in tomorrow's video, when I go over my own dynasty decisions, what I did in rookie drafts and stuff. I'll break down what my team looks like in that league to give you guys a better idea. But if you want your team covered in future videos, of course, head on over to flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE when you sign up. You get 30% off, 7 days for free, 6 months for free when you sign up annually, and you get priority submissions to these episodes. Again, I would love to say we're going to get to your free submission very soon, because I'm sure people are going to comment, hey, I submitted in July and I still haven't had my team covered. Unfortunately, we are backed up with like 10, 15 paid submissions. Yeah. So like we are trying to hammer out as many videos as we can this week to get through the paid queue. So the free queue is something that we're just like not capable of doing. Maybe in the future we'll do an all free submissions video, but it's hard to do that when we have a bunch of people in our paid queue who have signed up on our site. And we haven't gotten to their team yet.
It's hard to get to the free submissions when there's literally a perk to skip the line.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you guys have actually paid. And again, that's the benefit and the drawback of us growing as a channel, is that more of you guys want your teams covered. When we had 3,000 subscribers, we got the free submissions all day. Now it's impossible to do that because a lot of you guys want your teams covered and you're supporting us. We really appreciate that. So again, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed all that good stuff. Peace out. We'll talk to you soon.